Langlois noticed some alarming peculiarities. For example, he noticed that a single sentence contained scripts from different centuries, or that the shapes of letters and words were distorted or smushed together to fit onto a fragment. To Langlois, this implied that this letter was already fragmented when the writer wrote on it. Unfortunately, in Langlois' skilled eyes, this only meant one thing. Some of these scrolls were fake. Yet he didn't break the news to his team for at least a year. Perhaps he absolutely wanted to be sure before saying anything, or part of him didn't want it to be true. Eventually he did tell his colleagues, and the team concluded that Langlois, sadly, was correct. And upon further studies, the team determined that about half of the scrolls in the businessman's possession are forgeries. The team went on to publish their findings in a journal called the Dead Sea Discoveries in 2017. But this was only the beginning of the exposé for Langlois. The Museum of the Bible in DC was set to open its doors with an outstanding collection. And at the center of this collection was an impressive set of 16 Dead Sea Scrolls. In this conference, Michael Langlois dropped the news that based on the images that he had seen of these 16 Dead Sea Scrolls, they share the same unmistakable writings as the Norwegian businessman's Dead Sea Scroll fragments. Michael went on to say, quote, "I'm sorry to say that all the fragments published in this collection are forgeries. This is my opinion," unquote. This scholarly mic drop led to a re-evaluation of Dead Sea Scrolls in private collections all around the world. Azusa Pacific in Southern California bought 5 scrolls in 2009. Upon re-evaluation, they concluded that their scrolls were also fake and subsequently sued their dealer. And again, in Fort Worth, Texas, a Baptist theological seminary announced that their 6 scrolls were also deemed forgeries. But the nail in the coffin came from the Museum of the Bible. After Dr. Langlois' revelation, the museum hired an art fraud investigator who utilized imaging and chemical techniques to confirm or deny the scroll's authenticity. In 2020, the museum announced that their centerpiece collection of 16 Dead Sea Scrolls were entirely made up of forgeries. Langlois appeared to be the bearer of bad news, and that was putting it lightly. However, Dr. Langlois, being aware of these sentiments, views it differently. In his own words, quote, "My intention wasn't to be an expert in forgeries, and I don't love catching bad guys or something. But with forgeries, if you don't pay attention, you think they're authentic. They become part of the data set you use to reconstruct the history of the Bible. The entire theory is then based on data that is false. That's why ferreting out biblical fakes is paramount. Otherwise, everything we're going to do on the history of the Bible is corrupt." But by far, Langlois' biggest work to date is on the stele of Mesha.